Fair enough. So today we are discussing speaker roles. Speaker roles as in if you are a particular speaker, what is it that you're supposed to do? But more importantly, how should you decide which speaker you want to go as between your teammates? Like it has to be a consensus. It's not our discretion. It's not LSE that's going to determine who goes as which speaker. It's the team, it's your teammates and you coming together thinking who can do which speech better. And that relies on your understanding of what each speaker is after all supposed to do in a speech. So there are a couple of things that have to be there in any given case line. So what is case line? Case line is just basically the entire case that you present, right? Why is this not writing? Yeah. This is the entire case that you present, the entire, I mean, whatever you choose to say in order to win the debate is a part of your case line. So this is like the umbrella term, which includes a lot of other things which have to come in a debate, starting with characterization of terms, followed by status quo and understanding of status quo. Third, a stakeholder analysis. And of course, like the constructives that you might have. And this is not a separate part. This is pretty intrinsic and like implicit, but just to help you understand what preemption means, I'm particularly mentioning it as if it were a separate component. Preemption is implicit. What is implicit? Implicit is just basically, I mean, this is for the junior category who might not understand what implicit means. It's something that is inherent, which is not like visible as such and cannot clearly be demarcated, but it's there throughout. That's implicit. So these are the 4 or 5 things that you will always have in any given case line if you are to win and if you are to like debate the way you should, which means that the speaker roles are also contingent on these things. Any speaker role would do one of these many things, right? So wait, I have to add a couple more things to this. This list wasn't complete. So after preemption, you will have possibly something called way, and then there's impacting and benefits, analysis, and lastly, not lastly, as in this is in no particular order, okay? This is not the chronology. This is just random stuff that you're supposed to include in your speeches. So a couple of components, right? Now, any speakers, so all the speaker roles are enlisted here. The various components of a case line I have enlisted here. Now it's just a match the following that we have to understand in this particular session that we have today, which is to say that I'm not even going to start by explaining what these various things are, because this we'll do through an exercise just so none of us are lost in the theory of it. But okay, so let's first do that exercise, understand these components, and then we'll link it back to the speakers, which means which component is supposed to be covered by which speaker and how should each component be dealt with in the debate, and how should burdens and responsibilities be divided. Cool. So let's pick a motion. Let's just say, let's pick a very simple motion. I'm typing it out in here, like right here. So this is the motion, okay? I mean, this house regrets the representation of the have it all trope of women as brave, right? So does everybody understand the motion, or do you need me to explain the motion or any part of it?
Could you explain what the have it all trope means?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's supposed to be a context slide. And I will do that. But other than that, okay, just give me 1 second. I'll also put it in the chat for people who might not like this. So have it all is just basically the women have a perfect, not a perfect, but some personal like work-life balance. As in, I work hard, I have financial independence, but I also have a family that, I mean, gives me the sense of belonging that I need or whatever. So it's about just like knowing all walks of life and not being restricted to anyone. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. So what I need you all to do, please, is to put your like make one argument. Okay, don't do anything beyond what I'm telling you. Just make one comprehensive argument from for the motion. So you actually regret the representation of habit or trope of women as brave, and you're writing as proposition. Write one crisp argumentation that you think you can run in this debate, and put it on the chat because I need to copy paste it to a Google Doc in order to see the difference between all the arguments that will be presented. Please do it by 6:20. It's 6:16 at the moment. I think 4 minutes should be enough. We'll extend the time for the junior category if they want more time. Bhavika, is there a question I can address?
Yeah. So are we supposed to write for the motion or against the motion?
For. Everybody is writing for the motion.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You can keep putting it in the chat once you're done with the argument. Please don't cut corners. Give me a comprehensive argument, emphasis on comprehensive, whatever that might mean to you. Hi, so for whoever doesn't understand the motion, you can mute me if you get the motion and you're working on your argument and if my voice is disturbing you. But for others who still need a clarification and are DMing me, okay, so I'm going to explain the motion for one final time. This house regrets, as in you as the proposition side would regret, whatever regret might mean to you, the representation of habit all trope of women as brave. So habit all trope is just basically the type of women who happen to have a work-life balance, who would work outside but also have a family they can cater to and tend to, and they are pretty much satisfied with how things are going. And at least they have like from afar you think they have they have like their fingers in all the pies, and they have a comprehensive lifestyle and they know all walks of life. So that is the have it all trope. And the motion says that you regret the representation of such a trope as being for the kind of women who are brave, right? Or if a woman has it all, then they should be deemed like brave. That is the kind of interpretation that you're regretting on proposition. On opposition, of course, you don't regret it, you support it, or you say there are some merits to it, but we're not concerned with opposition at the moment. Is there anybody who still doesn't understand the motion? You can raise your hand, or like even give me a Zoom private chat, like give me a private message on Zoom. I'll explain over again. That's not an issue. All right, so I have a response from Naisha and Devroop. 2 people, which is good. But let's just wait for 2 more minutes because people were seeing clarifications. Also, none of you are on camera, which is disappointing to say the least. I'm just not on camera because when I share screen and I'm on camera, both at the same time, my internet falters. A couple more responses, please, quickly. Cool. So we have one from Bhavika as well now. Okay, so we have 3 arguments. We can work on these until other people are also ready to share their own. I mean, I would strongly recommend that you try sharing your arguments because that way you understand better because you'll be able to weigh your argument.
Where do we have to share our arguments?
Just like put it on Zoom, direct message perhaps.
I'm not able to put it in the chat.
How's that? I mean,
Why should I put it?
Public chat, like not even Zoom public chat?
Yeah, no, it's not pasting for some reason.
Strange.
Yeah, I think it's too large, I guess. Wait, where have the others posted their work?
They've given it to me through chat only.
Okay, that's not visible.
I think maybe we'll let you say it out loud then, in that case, after
yeah.
like when we're discussing it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. Just give me 1 second. I'm just copy pasting everybody's responses. Cool. So we have a couple of responses to work on. I'm going to show you all of your responses and the others. Just have a look first, and perhaps let's go through them together, all of us. So the first response, and now at the moment we don't care who gave this response, right? Insofar as we have some responses, we can just weigh them against each other to say which is the most effective. Cool. So the first response says that women. Okay, somebody mute. Somebody's unmuted. Please mute yourself. Women who are not falling under the same trope begin feeling inferior. So, like they are running. I don't know. I mean, this is an argument where they're saying that look, women shouldn't feel inferior, and that this trope would actually lead to that sort of a sentiment brewing, which we don't want. Cool. As society has begun only considering they have it all trope of women as brave, they feel that they are only strong is they are falling under this category. This might have been a typo. Okay, but we get the idea. In this world where women are presented with more opportunities than they have in the past 200 years, the having it all trope strikes an equal balance between managing the household while pursuing what they love. Doing this task is no easy feat for any woman who is able to effectively break stereotypes and go against the wishes of patriarchal expectations. Women should be considered as brave. Okay, this argument, I am not sure if this is speaking for or against the motion. Whoever wrote this particular argument, could you please unmute and explain this to us? Even if you're unsure about it, we're okay with that.
No, so I was basically just giving like a pretext to what the trope was, like explaining it a little bit. And then I basically, in the last line, I went on to explain that for anyone who is actually effectively able to break stereotypes and go against the wishes of patriarchal society, of what like the patriarchal society has like imbibed in us, should be considered brave.
So at the towards the end of your argument, you're saying that any woman who is able to effectively break stereotypes should be called brave, right?
Yeah.
So in that case, you're not regretting the idea of calling these people brave.
But I thought we were supposed to go for the argument.
Okay, all right. This is another clarification that you might need. Okay, good that you brought this up because it gives me another very important thing that I might have to extend on. Actually, I want to at the moment. If you go, okay, so there are various types of emotions. One of them being this house regrets, and that's why I chose a this house regrets emotion, because this can play tricks with you if you are new to the format. So if a motion reads this house regrets X, and the X is a variable which could be just basically anything, you as proposition will regret that thing because you are proposing the motion, which means that whatever the motion is saying, whatever the motion is saying, you're supposed to do it. So if the motion says that this house regrets X, then proposition member, because they have proposed the motion, will regret it, right? Prop regrets. And then if there is another motion which says THBT, which is this house believes that X should be done or whatever, then proposition is supposed to do that thing. They're not, I mean, they do it, see, X should be done over Y. So you propose that, yes, X should be done over Y. You do exactly what the motion tells you if you're proposition, which means that proposition side would not always say what is like would not always make the affirmative stance. You will just do what the motion tells you to do. That is what I meant when I said you will go for the motion. Does that make sense? So like if the motion says you regret, you regret. If the motion says that you believe in something, you believe it. If the motion says that this house supports, you support it. If the motion says this house will ban, then you will ban it. Although ban is a negative step, and proposition is often equated to affirmative action. Does that make sense, Bhavika?
Okay, my bad. I
think that
didn't know like the full form to THR, so I completely messed it up. I think this would work on like the opposition argument.
Yeah, yeah. My bad. I thought, okay, so I run with the presumption that people know about the abbreviations.
Could you please reshare the top motion again since I just joined?
It's in the chat. Could somebody please do it for me? Cool. I hope somebody is doing that. All right. So this is opposition. We can just sidestep this argument for the moment because this is opposition. We're not discussing opposition at the moment. The representation of the habit or trope of women as brave is regretted as to be bold. One is ought to be decisive, which doesn't come hand in hand when a person chooses to opt for everything instead of great. Okay. Who made this argument? Whose argument is the third one?
The group.
This was great. Okay. I think this is a nice little comprehensive argument where they just go ahead and say, I mean, she's just saying that, look, habit or trope means you are imposing a certain choice on them by calling a certain type of women brave, and by extension, calling the people who don't opt into it as not so brave, which means that once you give in to manufactured choice, you are not brave because you dare not go against the grains. Is that the right interpretation?
Yes.
Okay. Give me 1 second, please. Hey, I'm sorry, it was an urgent call. Okay, so this is about the Jews argument. Moving on. Now, these are two arguments that we had from different people, right? And which one do you think is more convincing? Could somebody just like raise their hand and tell me which do they think is the more convincing one? So we're comparing the first one to the third one. Tanuj, yes.
Yes. So the third argument tells us more about the problems that women face every day due to being portrayed as brave, which I see that in the first argument was also done, but in the third argument, it is being told better and it can be spoken more about.
Fair enough. Somebody else, just unmute yourself and put forth your stance. Quickly, guys. I mean, we are running out of time. Okay, unresponsive classes don't help. So
Sorry, what did you want us to do?
I want you to compare the two arguments that we have, this one and Divjot's, this one, these two, and tell me which do you think is more convincing given the type of analysis you find here on the like with what they've written.
I think like the third one is just like explained more like crisply and like it's just straight to the point and just explained better than the first one. Although like the points they make are similar.
Similar? Okay, perfect. Bhavika, yes. The kind of response I'm looking for. Yeah.
I think that the third argument has better characterization than the first one, because the first one basically, I think, redefines what the motion is saying. But the third one actually lays out the impacts of the motion, as in women don't be decisive and women choose to opt for everything instead of the right option or whatever they want to choose, which is, I think, a better characterization than the first one.
Okay, fair enough. I think all of you hit the nail on the head when you go ahead and say that, look, it's the similar. I mean, this just sounds like, I mean, the third argument just sounds like a better extension of the first one. And that's because if you're talking of inferiority here, the third argument actually explains how inferiority works. How a manufactured choice can never yield, like can never give people the idea or the conception of them having a choice, insofar as they keep opting into what the society tells them. It's the same as patriarchy, right? Just that this time they are being told a different kind of narrative, which is less patriarchal. This could also extend into a principal argumentation where you say that, look, patriarchy was engendered because women would give in to the societal demands without having agency of their own. And if you choose to just say that, oh, a certain type of women are brave because of what they do, as opposed to the others, you are again like just setting a similar trend, just like how patriarchy proliferated, by setting narratives that will imperatively have people fall on one side and not the other. Is that understood?
Yes.
Is there a question before I go any further?
No, sorry. I was just asking to let my other device in, but now it was fine. Right?
Okay, fair. So what I am trying to do and share through this particular exercise is that the arguments that you will come at, all of you, or like all of us in fact, will be the same by and large. Insofar as the society we live in is the same, the context we are put in is the same, our understanding of gender parity, etc., is the same. We're humans. At the end of the day, there are only so many requirements we have, and these are all shared, right? In which case, the argumentation is going to be the same, and the kind of debater you are doesn't really matter. And in terms of like the arguments you're going to come up with, because after a point, you start coming up with the right arguments and are headed usually in the right direction. What then makes a difference in your debating and the other person's, and who gets the round and who wins the round, is just basically who is able to analyze it better and impact it better and put it in a better context. So, because this third argument would tell you that, look, representation of have it all as women is regretted because one has to be decisive to be brave. This person is actually trying to determine and like characterize what brave is to them. Until unless they do that for us, we won't be able to tell who should or should not be brave, right? Or what brave in fact means in this particular debate for the sake of this debate. Which means every particular term that you have in your motion, not every doesn't mean like the conjunctions and everything, of course. Everything as in terms that of course strike as like relevant to the motion. For example, brave. So if something has to be represented as brave and regretted or not regretted, I have to first define what brave is to me. Just like how in the third argument, it's been done, right? They say that, look, brave people have to be decisive, right? You could have added more hues to it, but that's because I didn't tell them to particularly characterize. That's why. Now, this particular argument would not have those characterizations, because of which you think this falls short. Idea then remains the same. Inferiority complex, women will not be able to yield agency, which is unbecoming because we want feminism to strike this, that. But about the analysis part of it, I hope this makes sense to you, right? Now, can you please read the first, third, and this argument in like bigger word? Okay, let me just make the font size smaller just so everything fits in the same frame. Is this legible? Is this okay? Are you guys able to read?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's fine.
Cool. Could you please read this and compare the two arguments to this one? Just keep pitching in as and when you're done reading and analyzing. Also, if at any point in time you don't understand where I'm coming from or what I'm saying, just please stop me and tell me to repeat or just simplify things. Any inputs yet?
What are we supposed to do?
Tanuj, you just read the arguments that we were discussing right now, the first and the third, the ones that your peers made, and compare it to this one and tell me which do you find more convincing and why.
Okay, so can I tell?
Yes, please. Shoot.
Yeah. So as I see in the third argument, it isn't perfectly characterized about why they are belittling about women being brave, as it does not actually tell that it is wrong or it is not right about telling that women are brave. In the first argument, I see that they are talking about how stereotypes and how patriarchal expectations are posed upon women. So this tells us about how they actually regret this. But in the third argument, I don't see that it has been exactly characterized in the way it has been in the first.
Okay. This is a bit confusing. So the argument in italics and the argument in normal font. Let's just talk of it like that. So you think this is the less convincing argument as compared to this one? Is that right? Like the one which is without the italics in normal font.
Yeah, I think that the first one is better and the third one isn't.
Okay, perfect. All right. Other inputs, please. Quickly, guys. This shouldn't take too long. You just have to read and make up your mind.
So the argument which is in the pointer, like, isn't it for the opposite side?
Yeah,
This
like
one-
the
the
one
last
in bold, I feel like it's the opposition, and the one in italics is like for the motion.
Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. This one, the one we said was good. I'm so sorry about this. Okay, this one, the representation of habit all. The one
I
about
think that
manufactured goods.
the second argument is also sound. However, I think that the impact of the second argument is much lesser when compared to the first argument, since the first one is inherently based on principle, while the second one is more based on the practicalities of it, and that might not be universally applicable to all of the stakeholders, and so it might not hold the same weight.
Fair enough. Okay. All right. So most of us like this better than this, right? And you're saying that the impacting comes better in this particular argument, which is fair because this discusses a principle. But then again, this is to tell you that there are two types of arguments, which is to say there's a principle argument and then there's a practical argument. And there's no hierarchy between the two types, which means that it's not like the principle argument is more important than a practical one or or like vice versa. So what are practical arguments basically? Where you just talk about your tangible material reality and how that changes through what you propose. So if I regret a certain representation, what are the practical impacts of it? One, women will switch to a particular side because societal perception is bound to influence us. Point in time, that is true. It is possible that the women who are who were unwilling to do both the things at the same time because they had different priorities, they're going to now make a switch because they want to be thought of as socially acceptable, and everybody wants to be thought of as on like the better side of the world, being called brave and whatnot. Which means that this manufactured choice is going to lead to a practical outcome wherein the women are signing up for both types of things, and perhaps, I mean, whatever the consequences are, that becomes a part of your impacting. What is a principal argument? But a principal argument is running your argumentation on a value which should be upheld in a society. So it sounds more idealistic. It seems like, and principles oftentimes seem inconsequential to debaters sometimes because they think that, principle doesn't yield any direct advantage, so they might not be bought. But that's untrue. Principle arguments are just as convincing as long as you're able to prove the relevance of the principle. So if your principle is just like social responsibility or self-actualization and why that is important in life, you have to tell me why self-actualization as a principle. First of all, why is self-actualization a principle at all? Right? That you're given one life, you're supposed to make what you will of it, this, that, whatever. And then secondly, you are supposed to tell me why is self-actualization relevant to the context that you're speaking in. And then lastly, you're supposed to tell me how self-actualization is maximized on your side of the house. So principle and practical, both kinds of arguments can be convincing given the type of analysis that you're willing to give and the impacting that you do. Verbose arguments would also not like yield a lot of impact. So don't think that, oh, just because I'm laying bare everything and explaining like I would to a 5-year-old, I'm definitely going to win the argument. It also is to a very huge extent, contingent on the kind of impact you can create. It doesn't matter in how many words, right? So that's pretty much what I wanted you all to know, that arguments that we all run are going to be the same. The idea here is same. Overdrawing from women's capacity, inferiority complex, this, that. It's about the framing and who does that better, which eventually leads to a win or loss. So now going back to this, where we were discussing, okay, it's all gone. Yeah. So we were discussing a couple of things as in the characterization and everything. So characterization becomes relevant now. Now that you know what an argument is supposed to include and what makes it convincing, I can explain what characterization is to people who don't know. Although the impression that I get is that a lot of us already know what characterization basically is. So is there anyone who wants to give it a shot, as in explain it to the others who might not know about it, what characterization is?
Characterization is an analysis of the argument, the mechanism by which you prove it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so characterization, you're right, but to just detail it a little bit more, characterization is just basically you explaining where you come from by the use of context, understanding of what you like, what your interpretation of the terms in the motion are, and this, that. So, like, if you talk about a motion, let's say this was to address the glorification of motherhood. In that particular motion, you probably want to clarify what glorification means. Insofar as glorification could mean a lot of different things to different people, although your intuition tells you that, glorification is what the dictionary says it is. It can be interpreted in different ways. For example, glorification could be pedestalizing women who choose to be mothers over any other thing, or glorification could just simply be offsetting the kind of negative image that's been created of motherhood because of the capitalistic society and the idea of independent women. So glorification could be a lot of things. Glorification could be exaggeration of something, or glorification could be a counter current to an already existing trend. But that is on you to decide what glorification is going to mean according to what is going to benefit you. If you regret the glorification, you will exaggerate the harms of glorification. If you support the glorification, you will offset the harms of glorification. So that's where characterization becomes relevant. Before understanding the terms and the use it might come in, you won't be able to pursue a meaningful debate, because of which introducing the terms and defining them as per your convenience is important. Oftentimes, this will lead to a government opposition clash where you don't agree with each other's characterization, but that's okay. Insofar as you clarify, even at opposition, that look, this is what we agree with, and this is what we choose not to concede to. We think they are misrepresenting glorification for so and so reason, and then whichever is the most convincing definition but also most charitable is the one which would stand, and then adjudicator gives that reason for buying one and not the other. That's how your characterization works in terms of defining the terms and your interpretation of it. Other than that, after characterization is your status quo, right? So status quo is just basically your understanding of what the world looks like within which the debate is happening at the moment. So if I'm saying that this house regrets the glorification of motherhood, am I talking about motherhood in developing countries? Maybe because feminism has not like grown on people just yet in developing countries as much as it has in the developed world, or because like patriarchy has a stronger control over women in developing countries. Do I want to specify the context of this debate in terms of a regional specificity, or do I want to say that this applies to almost every society that's still largely patriarchal, the globe, this, that? Which means sometimes you have to particularly specify where you're coming from, as in which country, which part of the world you think this debate or motion applies to, and sometimes it's specified in the motion. So, for example, if you want to talk about a comparison, like this house prefers to replace private schools with public schools, if that was the motion, you would probably say that this should happen. Okay, so what is your understanding of the context in this motion? So if it was between the binary of private and public schools and which should take over which, where would you how would you contextualize this debate? Where do you think this debate should happen? Where is it the most relevant in?
The country from where a person comes from.
Okay, but that wouldn't be specified. So if I say this house prefers school, this house prefers a world where schools replace private schools, and that's it. It doesn't tell you where the person comes from or the country that this debate is happening in. How do you then decide the context?
Maybe India.
Yeah, I would say India, but you can also take like the US for like the counter argument.
Yeah, you will have to come again. I'm so sorry. I have a very bad cold because of which I have to go grab water whenever I can. Yes.
Yeah, I was saying you can take India if you want to go against the motion, but you could take the US if you want to go for the motion.
But that's not how it works. So think of a charitable characterization which will work for both the sides.
Yeah.
Because also, yeah.
So according to me, this context relates to India because in India, private schools are leading in the school market more than the public schools.
Fair enough. In the developed world, is there such a concept as that of private schools, or like are private schools really preferred to public schools?
Yeah, because in private schools, people get more opportunity than in public schools.
Is it true for the developed world as well? Like in America, are private schools preferred more than public schools would be?
Yeah, still, people who get the chance to get into private schools, they prefer private schools over public schools.
Okay, so all right. So if you think of it like this, because the governments in the developed world have enough investment to do in education, because of which they can make the public schools better, I don't think this debate can operate as efficiently in the developed world as it would in the developing countries, because the developed world, the binary between private and public is not very harsh, which means people don't just like public schools are not always out at elbows and disheveled, just like private schools are not always to or like for the most affluent of classes, because even the affluent people will go to public schools when they're good. So this binary particularly applies to people where there is a lot of like haves and have nots disparity, but then again private school public schools distinction is very like clear and gaping, which means that it applies more to the developing countries because this distinction is a lot more problematic in the developing countries than it can ever be in the developed world. Do you guys agree with it?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Anyone else? Oh, you guys respond. I mean, I don't even know like if you're listening, you're not listening.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. The society with scarce resources, it would have more impact on, and so yeah, it makes more sense to have it in the context of it.
Right. So, I mean, your understanding of the motion could be anything, and your contextualization could be anything as well. It's just that you should know how to back it up and just be able to. Yeah.
But according to me, if India becomes a developed country, which will take a lot of time, people still have a thought in their mind that private institutions and anything private is still better than public.
No, but India becomes a developed country is the presumption you're running on. I mean, why is that presumption there? India is a developing country in the debate and outside of it, because you can't hypothetically envision a world where India would be developed.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that's about status quo and how to think of the status quo and how where the debate should happen, yada yada. So other than that, once characterization and status quo is done, the most important thing I think, according to me, is stakeholder analysis. Stakeholder analysis is just basically one, finding out who are the actors who get impacted by this particular motion, which is to say that if this is a motion which says this house regrets the glorification of motherhood, then who are the actors who are a part of this debate? They may or may not be mentioned in the motion. Can you guess?
The general population, the children in particular, the parents will have to pay for their education, and the corporations who might be the private players will be running the schools in private contexts.
General population, you said children as well, right? Could you be a bit louder? I mean, it's very feeble for me.
Is this better?
Yeah, this is better.
Yeah, so the general population, which includes the children who are going to be directly receiving the education, and the parents will be paying for it, and also the private players who will be running.
No. Tanish, we're discussing this house regrets glorification of motherhood.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. Sorry. Okay.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Glorification of motherhood. Can you please tell me who the actors are here?
Yeah, like this will directly or indirectly affect those mothers who cannot be like those women who cannot be in the era of motherhood. That will affect them in a big-hearted way.
Okay, women who can't be mothers are your micro stakeholders. So in general, women are impacted, but in particular, women who cannot be mothers are. Okay, fair enough. Don't you think women who are mothers are also impacted insofar as you are either regretting or not regretting the...
Yeah, they are. If we are not regretting, they're affected in a very positive way. While if we are opposite to the motion, then they are affected in a negative way.
Okay, at the moment, we're not discussing if it's a positive or negative effect. As long as there is an effect or impact, we call them stakeholders, right?
Yeah, then women in general, yes, to that. Now, like a mother, women in motherhood, yes,
Sure.
they're affected.
So we need to wrap this up in the next 3-4 minutes. Okay. Other stakeholders who could be is like the family in general, right? Like the societal configuration in general. That's how the popular societal configuration. So family is important, and family and individual is a building block in a society, and then they add, and then it makes a family, and then family eventually makes society. So society at large will change its perception of women, its perception of motherhood, its perception of configuration in terms of what should families look like, what should a woman's role be in there. So these could be your stakeholders. This is how you come to identify your stakeholders. After you've identified your stakeholders, you want to side with them, right? Who do you want to side with, or who do you seek to benefit through the motion that you're running, right? So if there is an actor motion, now an actor motion is where there is clearly mentioned that you are a certain actor and you are debating as this actor. So this house, as the prime minister of a developing country, would work on net income, like net economic growth rather than structural employment. In which case, you are explicitly told who you are. You are the prime minister of a developing country, which means you can only pursue this debate keeping in mind the interests or the incentive structure based on which a prime minister of a developing country does anything. So there, an actor is specified. But in this case, when you regret the glorification of motherhood, the actors are not specified. So you have to gauge who the actors are. You have to gauge who you want to work in the interest of and whose incentive structures you should know. But any actors' incentive structures and gauging them is extremely important, because I don't know, or if I were to talk about a certain thing that should or should not happen, I should know how the actors within a motion are going to behave and respond to what I am saying in order to win on likelihood. Insofar as debates are won on likelihood, I have to ensure there is a likelihood in what I'm proposing. And this likelihood of something happening or not happening comes through you justifying that the actors will respond how you think they will respond. Does that make sense? Yes, no, what are you saying?
Yes,
Hello.
sir.
Okay, thank you, Sam.
Can you repeat a little? I just couldn't listen to it.
Okay, so there are actors in a debate. The actors would have incentives. right? Any actor in this world, like you, me, whoever, works with incentives, right? I teach here for a cause. You come here because you want to break at LSE or whatever. All of us have motivations for doing anything, absolutely anything that we do. Those are called incentives, right? You have to find out what the incentive structure of every actor involved in the motion is. So if women are the actors, what are their incentive structures? What do they look for in life, right? What are their immediate requirements given they are born and brought up in a country like India? This, that. These incentives, and once you figure them out, you are able to create a likelihood analysis, which means that if I'm proposing something, is it likely to happen? If I'm saying I want to regret the glorification of motherhood, and I say these are like one, two, and three would be the impacts of it, the working of that impact and the likelihood of that impact is contingent on how people will respond to it. If you say glorification of motherhood would lead to women become opting into motherhood by themselves, even if it's not conducive for them, you are saying that look, glorification is bad insofar as women will be, again, manufactured choice is there, which pushes women into motherhood, which means it harms the women. But then there's an underlying thing is your understanding of women in this case, of women as actors who are at the mercy of societal perception. Do you understand? And how women want to break free from it. A little
Yeah, I
bit.
get it.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it shouldn't, I mean, I don't.
So can we relate this to any historical events like just what happened in Nazi Germany? Hitler glorified those women in motherhood. So women went into motherhood without any choices.
Okay, that might be a very extreme. Okay, so you want to win on likelihood. I think we'll discuss likelihood tomorrow because there's another session for which people are coming in. But you win debates on likelihood. So as long as you're able to prove likelihood of something happening in this world, you win the debate. But if you refer to the Nazi Germany, your linkage to the current world is lost because Nazi Germany was an extreme phenomenon that happened, which is unlikely to repeat itself. So you lose out on likelihood analysis there. Do you understand?
Oh yeah, I get your point. That's a fair point.
Okay, I think we'll have to call it a day for today. I think I'll pick it up from likelihood and how that wins you the debate tomorrow. Thank you all for joining in. I'll share the recording shortly. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, are you still there?
Yes.
Like, can you please share me the timings of the competition that is going to happen, the list competition?
I think we can take it up on the WhatsApp group because there's another session that's going
Okay.
on. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
That's okay.